Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. David Nicklaus has been a business reporter, editor, and columnist at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch since 1981. Currently, he writes 3 columns a week on local and national business trends and economic issues. He also writes a weblog called Mound City Money on stltoday.com. A native Iowan, Nicklaus received a bachelor's degree in journalism from Drake University and a master's in economics from the London School of Economics. He lives in Webster Groves with his wife, Carol, and 3 children. David Nicklaus, welcome to Conversation.
It's good to be back, Lee.
I'm glad to have you. These are interesting economic times, very different than the last time you were here. Since you were here, the American economy did a crash dive, and lots of money simply evaporated out of the economy.
Indeed, we've had the housing market crash, the financial crisis, banks essentially nationalized, car companies nationalized. It's been amazing times.
Well, I don't really want to get into the political pros and cons because people are throwing charges back and forth. It's Bush's economy. It's, the Democrats screwed up on Fannie Mae and Freddie. Let's not go there. But
well, we're all in this together. There's plenty of blame to go around.
Exactly. We're here now, and people have to survive and hopefully prosper into the future. In your opinion, what is it that the United States needs to be doing now to, 1, first get back on its feet, and 2, to start creating more wealth than we're sending out of the country?
I think we need to start laying kind of the long-term foundations for an economy that's not based on excessive investment in housing, not based on excessive debt both at the individual level and at the government level. I think the prescription is a kind of sound policies, invest in things that make sense, like infrastructure and education. So we'll have the workforce we need in the future, but don't spend any more time stimulating people to buy more house than they need, or having cash for clunkers to have them buy a car now instead of 6 months from now. That kind of wasteful spending is only going to dig the hole deeper.
It's interesting that you mentioned cash for clunkers, because I know a lot of people in the car business, and one of the things that I heard from them was that, like you just said, all cash for clunkers did was take and accelerate their sales. A sale that they would have had a couple of months forward was accelerated to that period, because people say, oh, well, if the government's going to give me some money to buy a car, why not?
Exactly, and it was billed as a green program, but it wasn't green. I mean, the improvement in mileage required was not all that much, and we destroyed a lot of perfectly good used cars, which no real environmentalist should favor, destroying perfectly good assets.
Exactly. I mean, all of a sudden, I heard that a lot of these car companies were short on cars to sell to folks who couldn't afford new cars.
Yeah, it was very tough on the low-income person who just wanted affordable transportation.
So, okay, you mentioned not housing boom, not debt driven. Can you make any suggestions as to, if you were king, and you were allocating assets in the United States, starting now, how might you allocate assets?
Well, I don't have an overall grand plan, but I would start moving away from programs that subsidize one kind of consumption over another, such as housing, and start focus the federal and state and local budgets on what truly are the kind of the public goods for everyone. The roads, bridges. We've certainly got some needs there. If we don't keep our education system up to par and improve it in some areas, we're not going to be the leading economy in the 21st century.
this area, St. Louis, especially on the Illinois side, up and around Alton through Granite City, used to be very heavy industry oriented all the way, I would say certainly during World War II, all the way through probably into the 70s, maybe even into the 80s. And then many of these factories simply died. They went away, their assets, or I should say steel was being created or built in other, manufactured in other countries. Is there
and in other parts of this country, to be fair. I mean, it's not,
is there any way that
this
Alton, Granite City, the city of St. Louis can reclaim those, can you see any way that they can reclaim and start having manufacturing facilities which create enough wealth to pay people the kind of wages that we would like to see people be paid?
Well, first of all, we do still manufacture goods in this country. We do.
Okay.
I mean, the value created by U.S. manufacturers has gone up nearly every year until the recession, and we are still the world's leading manufacturing economy. A lot of people don't believe that or ignore that fact, but it's true. You've got to start there. However, manufacturing is different than it was 50 years ago. The golden era that you're referring to, it's it's much more high tech. It's less labor intensive. It doesn't take the same number of workers to build a ton of steel or to build a car or what have you. And those workers are going to have more skill, more education in most manufacturing jobs today. So that needs to be our starting point. We do have to look to the industries of the future and not the industries of the past. We also can't expect there to be a lot of jobs in this economy for people without any education to speak of. I mean, the high school dropout has a very bleak future in today's economy. So we need to work, in our school systems, get those kids to graduate and to go on to some kind of training. It doesn't have to be 4-year college, but a technical school, a community college, some kind of acquire some kind of skills that will be needed in the 21st century. I'm kind of a believer in if you build the workforce, that the jobs will come. But the problem is we haven't. In much of the St. Louis region, we haven't invested appropriately in our workforce.
I want to tell you a quick story, then I want to ask you, and what I want to ask you after that is what sort of businesses you're referring to when we're talking about creating a labor force that's going to create wealth-producing products. The quick story is this. I knew an individual who told me, because he grew up in the Alton area, he said that back in the 60s, mid-60s, that a kid could drop out of school, go to work for one company, and be hired that day, no problem. Work there for a period of time, all of a sudden the foreman just, they get into it, guy says, I quit, moves down to the very next factory, says, I'm here to work. They put him to work that day. He's there for X number of months or years. All of a sudden, frustration, he moves on to the next factory. This guy has very little education, but he's capable of doing heavy-duty work. Those jobs, as you just said, that day is gone.
It's gone. It is gone. I mean, the jobs of today, the jobs of the future are, requiring more work with your mind, less work with your muscles.
Okay. So now coming back to that question of what shall we build a labor force to do?
Healthcare is very big. Advanced manufacturing. I mean, we still make fighter jets at Boeing, and that requires a lot of machined parts to go into them. It's a very high technology business. Any number of things. Housing. Components for housing. We will have a need for more housing starts someday, even though we don't.
Even though we have a glut of houses right now.
Yeah. Electronics, advanced plastics, and advanced compounds. with lightweight components. That
Yeah, I started singing the praises of nanotech like
Exactly,
over a decade
yeah.
ago, probably 15 years ago.
And that day is almost here.
I mean, I went to SIU and
yeah.
talked to them about it, about being like the Illinois Center, and for Madison County, because Madison County was desperate for more kinds of jobs. So I went to them and went to the political community. It was like, nano what? Nano what? You know, and still, I think today, if you talk to many political leaders, they haven't a clue that this is going to be, you know, a several $trillion industry in the not too distant future, and that wherever it's located is going to be the new the new Silicon Valley.
Sure. Well, it may be more diffuse like that. There may not be a Silicon Valley for nanotechnology, but areas like Greater St. Louis should be able to get a part of it. Certainly, there's a great potential for medical technology here. Medical devices, pharmaceuticals, healthcare services. We've got a great critical mass already in that industry.
I mean, I've heard from so many, over the years, I've heard so many people say that St. Louis area just doesn't have or doesn't do enough investing in new technologies and new businesses.
That has historically been a problem. I think the stereotypical phrase was deep pockets but short arms. I mean, we've got a lot of old wealth, old money in St. Louis, but not much of a willingness to take risks on new enterprises, new ventures.
I mean, rightly so. I mean, people who don't want to lose their principal, or
certainly.
Or they're just I'm fat and I'm happy. I don't need to do that.
Certainly, rightly so from a short-term, perhaps short-sighted perspective. I mean, if they're just taking care of their needs, I mean, it's the fact that St. Louis was once very entrepreneurial. A century ago, we created great companies like Monsanto, Ralston, Purina, then later in the century, McDonnell Douglas. There's a great history of entrepreneurism in St. Louis, but I think we did just hit this period of prosperity where things were so good, we didn't have to look for the next new thing and invest in it, so we didn't. Now, over the last 10 years, we've gotten a number of things started. The business incubators like the Center for Emerging Technologies. We've got the St. Louis Archangel Network, which is kind of getting wealthy individuals energized about investing in startups again, and a number of venture capital funds that are based here. I think over time that will pay dividends, but it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're not, we can't point to a great number of jobs today that exist because of it. With with a little good fortune in 20, 25 years, we'll be able to say that yes, that has spawned some new industries.
So you're thinking, looking back, in our old age, we'll say, oh well, there was the period.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think the groundwork has been laid, is being laid today for some but the nature of capitalism is I don't know, you don't know, the governor of Missouri doesn't know which one of those enterprises is going to succeed and be the next I don't know, the Intel or Microsoft of the medical technology.
So you make an excellent point right there, and the point being that government, nobody really knows what's going to be a good technology, and it seems to me that when government leads people or leads industries toward a certain objective, that they don't know that they're leading that whole segment of capital right off of a cliff. This whole idea of green whatever. If all of a sudden some new technology emerges somewhere else in the world that just bypasses all this, suddenly we've spent $1 trillion building an industry